The ultimatum that broke the internet. The Tuesday morning coffee routine of 8 billion humans was rudely interrupted when every electronic device on Earth synchronized into displaying the same image. A being that looked like someone had crossed a praying mantis with a disco ball materialized on every screen, its crystalline exoskeleton reflecting light in ways that hurt to look at directly. Supreme Overlord Zarketh of the Carathian Supremacy had spent 3 solar cycles preparing this speech. His species had conquered 47 star systems using this exact psychological warfare technique. The key was overwhelming superiority displayed with maximum dramatic effect. He adjusted his ceremonial war crown, a massive structure of floating geometric shapes that defied several laws of physics, and began his carefully rehearsed address. Pitiful inhabitants of the water-soaked rock you call Earth. Zarketh's voice resonated through every speaker, translated perfectly into every human language simultaneously. I am Supreme Overlord Zarketh, destroyer of the nebula gates, harvester of 1,000 suns, and your new absolute master. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship, the inevitable conclusion, gleamed with technology so advanced it looked like magic. Holographic star maps showed conquered systems marked in ominous red. Other Carathians moved about their duties, each one wearing increasingly elaborate headpieces that seemed to serve no purpose except intimidation. Observe our might, Zarketh continued, gesturing dramatically as the broadcast switched to external views. 500 pyramid-shaped vessels hung in perfect formation above Earth, each one the size of Manhattan. Their surfaces were covered in weapons that looked like they could sneeze and accidentally vaporize continents. Each of these vessels carries the power to reduce your civilization to quantum dust. We have enslaved species that had achieved faster-than-light travel, while your ancestors were still arguing about fire. In a small apartment in Berlin, Marcus Wagner, a 22-year-old graphic design student, was already taking screenshots. His roommate Hans looked worried, but Marcus was grinning. Dude, look at his hat thing. It's literally just floating triangles. This is prime meme material. Zarketh continued his monologue, unaware that his audience was not cowering in fear as expected. The mighty Vorthan Empire, with their psychic abilities and dimension-folding technology, lasted exactly 17 of your minutes against our assault. The Silicon Collective, beings of pure energy who had transcended physical form, now power our coffee makers. Emma Thompson, a barista in Seattle, had already posted the first response. It was a simple image of Zarketh with the caption, "When you spend all your skill points on intimidation but forget," to put any in fashion sense, it got 10,000 likes in 30 seconds. You have one rotation of your insignificant planet to surrender unconditionally, Zarketh declared, his mandibles clicking for emphasis. Your leaders will prostrate themselves before our glory. Your militaries will dissolve. Your resources will serve the supremacy. Failure to comply will result in the kind of extinction that other species tell scary stories about. The alien overlord leaned forward, his multifaceted eyes somehow managing to convey menace despite looking like a collection of disco balls. Do not mistake this for negotiation. The Carathian Supremacy does not negotiate with species that still rely on chemical propulsion, and haven't even colonized their own moon properly. You are insects before gods. Then Zarketh made his biggest mistake. He paused for dramatic effect, letting his words sink in. In that pause, humanity's greatest weapon activated, the internet's collective sense of humor. Within minutes, someone had already auto-tuned Zarketh's speech. The line, "You are insects before gods," became an unexpected club banger that would top Spotify charts within the hour. A teenager in Tokyo added a beat drop right after quantum dust that somehow made the threat of annihilation sound like Friday night plans. The Reddit community exploded. Someone started a thread called Alien Overlord Speedrun Any %, where people competed to create memes faster than ever before. The winner was a dentist from Mumbai, who somehow managed to create a perfectly lip-synced video of Zarketh singing "Never Gonna Give You Up" before the original broadcast had even ended. Twitter transformed into a comedy battlefield. Verified accounts and random users alike unleashed a barrage of observations that turned the terrifying first contact into humanity's largest inside joke. This alien really said prostrate yourselves with a straight face while wearing a crown that looks like a geometry teacher's fever dream, posted a famous comedian, gaining 1 million retweets. On the Carathian flagship, Communications Officer Vertex approached Zarketh with visible confusion. Supreme Overlord, the humans appear to be laughing? Impossible. Zarketh's mandibles clicked irritably. Show me their response. The main screen filled with Earth's internet traffic. Zarketh watched in growing bewilderment as his image appeared in countless variations. In one, someone had replaced his war crown with a collection of pool inflatables. In another, his dramatic speech was overdubbed with a nature documentary narrator discussing the mating habits of exotic insects. Sir, Vertex said hesitantly, they've created something called a drinking game based on your ultimatum. Every time you mention destruction, they consume fermented beverages. They're celebrating? Zarketh's voice cracked slightly, something that had never happened in his 400 cycles of existence. The situation deteriorated further when someone leaked that the aliens were monitoring Earth's internet. Within minutes, people were directly addressing the Carathians in their memes. Hey Zarketh, my dude. One viral post read, you know we literally made a movie about fighting aliens every summer for the past 40 years, right? This is basically Tuesday for us. A group of teenagers in Brazil started a TikTok trend where they acted out Zarketh's speech, but replaced all the threats with increasingly mundane complaints. You have one rotation to return my lawnmower became inexplicably popular, with millions of views in an hour. Scientists at NASA, who should have been analyzing the alien technology, were instead arguing in their group chat about which sci-fi movie Zarketh reminded them of most. The consensus was that he was basically Thanos but with worse dialogue and questionable fashion choices. The memes evolved rapidly. Someone created a dating profile for Zarketh on Tinder. Supreme Overlord, 847 years young. Hobbies include conquering galaxies and standing menacingly. Looking for someone who appreciates dramatic entrances and excessive jewelry. No humans, or maybe? Feeling curious. Professional comedians realized this was their moment. Comedy clubs around the world announced emergency alien roast nights. One comedian's livestream, where he provided commentary on Zarketh's threats like it was a sports event, crashed 3 separate streaming platforms from viewer overload. They call our planet a water-soaked rock, the comedian said, like we didn't literally name it after dirt. Earth. We called our planet Earth. We're not trying to be impressive here, Zarketh. We're self-aware. The Carathian bridge crew watched in stunned silence as humanity collectively refused to take them seriously. Their threat assessment algorithms, designed to predict fear responses across thousands of species, crashed repeatedly when trying to process what was happening. Sir, the strategic analysis officer reported, their stress levels are actually decreasing. Our ultimatum has made them happier. Zarketh stood from his command throne, his elaborate crown wobbling dangerously. In 47 conquered systems, his appearance alone had caused mass panic. Entire civilizations had surrendered just from seeing the Carathian fleet. But these humans had turned him into something called a meme, Lord, which his translation software suggested was either a term of mockery or bizarre affection. The worst part came when someone discovered that if you played Zarketh's speech backwards at half speed, it sounded exactly like a popular Earth lullaby. Parents were literally putting their children to sleep with his threats of annihilation. As the Earth completed 12 hours of its rotation, the internet had produced more content about the alien invasion than most civilizations produced in their entire recorded history. There were remixes, animations, interpretive dances, and someone had even crocheted a disturbingly accurate replica of Zarketh's crown and was selling patterns online. The Carathian supremacy had conquered galaxies through fear. They had weapons that could unravel the fabric of space-time. They had technology that made faster-than-light travel look primitive. But they had never encountered a species that responded to existential threats with humor so aggressive. It bordered on psychological warfare. The Comedy Club Diplomacy. 23 hours into the countdown, Earth's official response was announced. Every government in the world had somehow agreed on a single unified response, which was suspicious enough to make historians immediately start taking notes. The venue chosen for humanity's formal reply to the Carathian ultimatum was not the United Nations, not a military base, but the Apollo Theater in Harlem. The aliens monitoring all Earth communications were baffled. Their cultural databases suggested this was an entertainment venue, primarily used for something called amateur night, where humans judged each other's performance abilities through volume of applause. Surely this was an error in translation. But no. As the appointed time arrived, 3 humans took the stage. The first was Diana Chen, a theoretical physicist who also happened to perform stand-up comedy on weekends. The second was Robert Bobby Jackson, a former Marine-turned-comedy writer who had won 3 Emmys for his work on late-night television. The third was Professor James Hartley, a xenopsychologist who had spent 30 years studying how humans might react to first contact, though he admitted he hadn't predicted this exact scenario. "Good evening, Supreme Overlord Zarketh and members of the Carathian Supremacy," Diana began, adjusting the microphone with practiced ease. "We're here to deliver Earth's official response to your generous offer of subjugation and/or annihilation." The Carathian bridge crew leaned forward. Finally, a formal surrender negotiation. Their recording devices activated to capture what they assumed would be humanity's terrified capitulation. Bobby stepped forward, pulling out a small note card. "We've consulted with our greatest minds, our most powerful leaders, and that one guy who somehow predicts everything on Twitter." He paused, looking directly at the camera. "Our official response is no thanks, we're good." The silence on the Carathian ship was deafening. Zarketh's translator ran the phrase through 17 different linguistic algorithms, certain there was an error. "But," Professor Hartley added, "we do have some notes on your invasion technique if you're open to constructive criticism." Diana pulled out a tablet. "First, let's talk about your threat methodology. You mentioned turning the Vorthon Empire to dust in 17 minutes. Solid intimidation factor, but here's the thing. We Googled the Vorthans, couldn't find them. Now either your SEO is terrible or you made them up. Either way, not great for credibility." "Also," Bobby interjected, "the whole prostrate yourselves thing? Bit outdated. We stopped doing that after Game of Thrones ended. Nobody kneels anymore. It's bad for the knees and our health insurance is already a nightmare." On the Carathian ship, Zarketh's second-in-command whispered, Should we be taking notes?" The Earth delegation continued. Diana pulled up a holographic display, something that surprised the aliens since they didn't think humans had that technology yet. "We ran your threats through our movie database. You've essentially quoted Independence Day, War of the Worlds, Mars Attacks, and weirdly enough, the Emoji Movie. We're not saying plagiarism, but the hat things are cool though," Bobby admitted. "The whole defying physics thing? Respect, but maybe tone it down? You look like you rated a geometry textbook and just kept adding." Professor Hartley cleared his throat. "Now, from a psychological perspective, your approach assumes fear as the primary motivator for compliance. But humans are weird. We jump out of functioning aircraft for fun. We eat foods that actively try to hurt us because we like the sensation. We created horror movies to scare ourselves on purpose. Your threats aren't landing because we've been pretending to be scared of fake things for entertainment for centuries." The presentation continued with a PowerPoint that someone had clearly spent too much time on. It included slides titled Why Dramatic Pauses Don't Work on Gen Z and The Diminishing Returns of Genocide Threats in Postmodern Society. "Here's what really confused us," Diana said, pulling up a graph. "You have 500 ships, each capable of destroying our planet. Why do you need our surrender? Just seems like mixed messaging. Either you need us alive for something or you don't. The ultimatum suggests the former, but the threat suggests the latter." Bobby nodded enthusiastically. "It's like threatening to burn down a house you want to live in." "Make it make sense, Zarketh." On the Carathian flagship, the Psychological Warfare Division was having its first existential crisis in 10,000 years of operation. Their commander turned to Zarketh. "They're reviewing us? Like we're some kind of performance?" The Earth delegation wasn't done. Professor Hartley pulled up another slide showing social media statistics. "In the past 23 hours, your invasion has generated more global unity than any event in human history. Republicans and Democrats are making memes together. Israel and Palestine collaborated on a remix. North and South Korea did a joint TikTok. You've accidentally achieved world peace through the power of dunking on you collectively. Speaking of which," Diana added, "your invasion has a 23% approval rating, which actually makes you more popular than most Earth governments, so congratulations." Bobby stepped forward for what appeared to be the conclusion. "Look, Zarketh, Supreme Overlord, buddy, we get it. Conquering galaxies is your thing. Respect the hustle, but Earth isn't going to work out for you. We're too weird. We're the planet that looked at poisonous plants and thought, Bet I can make that spicy. We're the species that went to our moon using computers less powerful than the phone I use to watch cat videos. We invented reality TV, Diana added. We clearly make bad decisions for entertainment. Invading us is like trying to intimidate a species that already considers existence to be one big cosmic joke. Professor Hartley delivered what seemed to be the final point. However, we do have a counter-proposal. Instead of conquest, how about a cultural exchange? You clearly have fascinating technology. We have something you've never encountered, a complete inability to take anything seriously, including our own extinction. Think about it, Bobby said. You've conquered 47 star systems. They all probably fell in line, did the whole subjugation thing. Boring. But imagine going back to your empire with stories about the crazy planet that responded to invasion threats with a comedy special. You'd be legends. Diana pulled up one final slide. It was a tourist brochure mock-up titled, Visit Earth, the Galaxy's Wild Card. It featured photos of humans doing various dangerous activities for fun, food challenges that seemed to violate several laws of biology, and a section dedicated to Florida Man that the aliens couldn't even begin to understand. Plus, she added, we've already started selling merchandise. She held up a t-shirt that read, I survived the Carathian ultimatum, and all I got was this stupid t-shirt. 20% of profits go to a fund for teaching aliens about sarcasm. The transmission ended with Bobby looking directly at the camera. So Supreme Overlord Zarketh, what's it going to be? Boring conquest of another terrified planet? Or the most interesting story in your empire's history? You've got 1 hour to decide. We'll be here making memes either way. As the broadcast ended, the Carathian bridge fell into chaos. Officers were arguing. Computers were trying to process humor algorithms they weren't designed for. And Zarketh's crown had started to droop, which had never happened before. Supreme Overlord, his chief advisor approached carefully. The humans have somehow weaponized not caring. Our entire military doctrine has no response for aggressive apathy. Zarketh stared at the blue planet below. In his centuries of conquest, he had faced every type of resistance imaginable. Military, diplomatic, guerrilla, even temporal. But he had never faced a species that treated invasion like a comedy roast. Sir, the communications officer announced, we're receiving millions of messages from Earth. They appear to be job applications. They want to work on our ships as social media managers and vibe consultants. Another officer reported, the humans have started a betting pool on our response. The odds favor us joining something they call a podcast. I don't know what that is, but it seems to involve extensive talking about nothing in particular. Zarketh removed his elaborate crown, something he had never done in public before. Get me a direct line to their comedians, and someone find out what a meme actually is. As the hour deadline approached, Earth waited with barely contained amusement. They had faced the ultimate threat to their existence and responded with the most human reaction possible. They turned it into entertainment. The Carathian supremacy, masters of 100 worlds, conquerors of the stars, had finally met their match. Not in military might or technological advancement, but in a species so comfortable with chaos that they made it into an art form. And somewhere on Earth, someone was already working on the movie rights.